This is artist Dennis Pendleton, and today I'm going to paint an apple and a banana. I'll show you the materials that I'm going to use. I'll talk my way through everything I'm doing with the colors, the values, the color temperature, everything. So let's get started. So here we go. I'm using Escoda travel brushes. This is a number 12. And this is my palette, it has 16 colors on it. I'll be talking about those and telling you what they are as I use them. I'm painting on Hahnemuhle watercolor paper, 140-pound cold press in a block. So to start the apple, the light is coming from this direction across. So I'm going to start the apple with some cadmium red on the light side of the apple. Now, when you're painting something like an apple like this, you always want to start on the inside. Don't outline it and then fill it in. Get into rich colors right away. And to darken this, I'm adding some Alizarin Crimson, which is a cooler red. I'm adding that as I come down next to the banana here. So I get a nice rich color, because that area where the banana and the color or the apple come together is going to be an important edge in my painting. So I want to get that right. Now I have another color called Rose Dore, which is a very delicate red, really nice to work with, and I'm going to put some of that up here. I want to end up using all the different reds on my palette. There's some yellow on the apple, so I'm using lemon yellow, fairly thick. And if some of it bleeds into orange, that's just fine. Now, around where the stem is, I see a little bit of green, so I'm going to put some olive green in here and let it blend with the other colors, and that'll give me what I need when I'm ready to put the stem in. I'm going to go a little bit higher with the olive green up here, like that. And then on the back side of the apple, I'll go back to cadmium red, bring that across. I'm letting all these colors bleed together, like the green, for example, like that. Now, this is getting into the dark side of the apple, so I want to use some darker colors. I just added some Indian red to my brush, which is a nice, rich, darker red. I want to catch where the yellow is, so I'm going to put some more of that on here. I'm putting this on fairly thick, so some of it will bleed, but not as much as if it was wet. Now, to get a real dark red, I'm going to take Alizarin Crimson, and I'm going to put some mineral violet with it, which is a real dark, rich violet. And that will give me the darkest red that I end up using. So I'll put some of that over here. All the colors I've used so far are still wet. So I'm counting on them bleeding together and creating soft edges in the apple itself. So you can see how this side of the apple is a lot darker than the other side, showing that it's in shadow. And as it comes around, I'm going to go back to the cadmium red. Nice warm red here, and I'll bring it up and let it blend a little bit with some of the yellow like that. That's just what I wanted it to do right there. Now you can see the light coming across the apple. It's still a rich color. It's not faded out. It's still a nice rich red. And if I want to put a highlight on there, there's a couple things I can do, but I'll just go like that for now. Now the cast shadow. The cast shadow is really important. And you want the cast shadow to blend in with the apple. You don't want them to be separate. So I'm using Cobalt Violet for the cast shadow, so it'll really show up nicely like that. Now I want the apple colors and the cast shadow to bleed together like that. And just put that in. You don't want the cast shadow and the apple to be separate with a hard edge. You want the two to bleed together. Think of the cast shadow and the apple as one shape. Now as I move away from the apple, like that, making a nice rich stroke there. As I move away from the apple out here somewhere, I'm going to soften it just a little bit so it's not a hard edge all the way around. This is, see how that is bleeding together? That's exactly what I want. Now that highlight that I tapped on there with a fingerprint, I've just got a wet brush. I'm just going to lift that out with some water like that. So I have a nice highlight on there. Now, while that is drying, I want to do a little more work and bring out the stem. But while that is drying, I'm going to go ahead and move over to the banana rather than just stand around waiting for this to dry. I want to get a couple nice curving strokes on there like that. And some richer red up here. Yeah, that's doing just what I want. I'll be doing some spattering on there too, a little bit later. I'm just redoing this little edge where the apple comes up against the banana. So there's one little thing I want to lift off here, just like that. Now, the banana. So to start with, I'm just going to use a very light wash of yellow ochre for the banana. And I'm going to leave some of it white paper because obviously in watercolor you don't use white paint, at least not usually. Now I don't want the apple and the banana to bleed together. So it's happening right here. So I'm going to tap that out like that and over there. Now as it comes around, I will lighten it a little bit and leave some white paper just like that. Should be enough. I want a soft edge along here, so I'll soften it like that. I'm going to tap some of it even more to get a little texture in there like that. Now I'm on to the banana peel. So I want to use yellow ochre again. And I'm going to put a little bit of mineral violet in it. Violet is the complement of yellow. So it's a nice choice to darken things. There's a beautiful shadow shape right here, which I will explain later. But I'm going to paint it in now. Just like that. So this is where the banana just got darker because of a shadow. A cast shadow from one of the part of the peel. Just like that. Now if it's okay to leave this, but I'm going to tap a little bit of it out like that. Okay. It's all starting to take shape. Now I'm going to use that same mixture of yellow ochre and cobalt violet. Nice, rich, beautiful color. I want this to be even darker right here. Put a little more of the yellow ochre in it. Get this shape going up here. Now I'm checking, yeah, I want to leave a little sliver of white paper right there. Just like that. That's coming around nicely. Now we get into the yellow, and I'm using lemon yellow. And I'm going to paint the peel over here. I want a little more water in it. Get a nice, rich lemon yellow color. And it always dries just a little bit lighter than what I put down. That's what happens usually with watercolor. So I'll finish that off. Now I want to drag this around the edge without it bleeding into that darker shape. So I left a little sliver on there. Now, for the end of the peel over here, I'm going to start with the same lemon yellow, but I'm going to add a little bit of cerulean blue to it and let it mix right on the paper so that I get a nice green color, just like that. I love to have colors mixing on the paper like that. It's a beautiful way to use watercolor paint, just like that. And there's a little bit of a black on there, so I'm going to mix some burnt sienna with ultramarine blue. I can get as dark as I want that way. Put that on there like that. Yeah, that's working nicely. Now I want to trail some of that real dark black. I'm going to add some more burnt sienna to it and go right along this edge like that, just kind of skipping it along so it explains that part. There's a couple little marks in here like that. Now that peel has a shadow shape on it, and I'm going back to the mixture of yellow ochre and cobalt violet, and I want a soft edge up here like this, and because that yellow is still wet, it's creating a soft edge, so that's working out nicely. Now right along the edge here, I want some of that darker color with the burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. I will connect those two like that. I'm left-handed, so I always have to watch that I'm not dragging my hand in the paint. Now, this has got the nice cast shadow there. I'm going to put a few little lines on here just to explain the banana's thickness a little bit like that. And a little color on the end here. Now, there's a couple other peels on here that I want to deal with. So I'm going to go to this one right here, paint it all with the lemon yellow. It's not as bright as what I used before, and that's the way I want it. The lemon yellow is a cool yellow, and if I run a really hot yellow or warming yellow, I'll use cadmium yellow. So I want to put a little bit of yellow ochre in that, just to enrich it a little bit. And then there's a cast shadow on that. So let's see, I'm using Cobalt Violet and yellow ochre. And the cast shadow comes under the banana here like this and runs along, yeah, a nice soft edge like that. Just what I want. Now I'll take some more of that black that I mixed with burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. And I want to slip a little bit of it along here like that. And coming down this side. And a couple little marks in here like that to show that it's getting ripe. Now, I want a very light bit of yellow ochre and lemon yellow. Mainly lemon yellow, because I'm going to paint this one now. I've got my drawing here, which includes the cast shadows, so I have to kind of be careful what I'm doing, that I don't put paint somewhere where I don't want it. Come around like that with that nice rich lemon yellow color. And then I'll go back to a little bit of yellow ochre for the inside of this, like that. And I'll separate that with some darker color. Let's put a little bit of, let's see if this is going to work without bleeding all over. I think it'll be okay, just like that. Yeah, so that comes up and separates like that. Just skipping along the edge here, so it's not a hard, solid line. Now, I'm going to paint the inside of that other peel right here. And I'm using yellow ochre for that. And I'm going to spread that around a little bit more because I want it to be a light value. And if I leave bits of white paper in that part, that's even better. And that has a darker edge around it, starting there. A little bit more of the blue is showing up in that mixture, but I like that, so I'm not going to fool with it. Now I have a little bit more of the burnt sienna in it. So it will be a warm color down here and a cool color up there, and I'll turn some of that into a warm color. So just that color temperature makes it more interesting. Now that mixture of yellow ochre and cobalt violet, I'm putting some of that on here so that it shows part of that ripening a little bit. And I want a nice little line coming through here like that. And maybe a little bit up here. Yeah, now obviously it gets darker in here where it's folded over. And it's very much like the cast shadow. And it's the same colors, just like that. Now, when that's dry, I'll put a little edge on it. I think I might be able to do it right now because it's only wet on one side, yeah. That explains that curve. Now, the back of the banana here, I'm back to the lemon yellow. Paint the whole thing and then create some value changes after I do that. This is just pure lemon yellow again. And I think this is dry enough that I don't have to worry about them bleeding together. The whole thing is starting to look like an actual banana now. Just like that. And let's see, what else? I want to create a value change right here where it comes down and separates a little bit like that. Yeah, that's what I want. And while that is damp, I'll put the dark tip on the end of it and let it bleed a little bit. Just like that. And I want to have a dark line between the two. And I think if I do it now, it's okay if it softens a little bit. In fact, I think that's advantageous. So, like that. Now on the top of the banana, it changes a little bit. So I'm going to add just a little bit of violet up here, which is a beautiful, I have cobalt violet and mineral violet on my palette. This is cobalt violet, one of my all-time favorite colors. Comes in like that. Now the cast shadows on the banana will really help explain it. And I'm going to use the same color for cast shadows that I used on the apple, because I want to come around here with the cast shadow And I want it to connect to the cast shadow on the apple. That way the two objects will relate to each other better. So I'm just coming along here, putting in the cast shadow. It narrows here, put less pressure on the brush. Create that little tip in the cast shadow like that. You can see how the cast shadows are adding a lot of nice color and other things to the painting. Temperature changes, for example. Now there's a nice cast shadow over here, like that, that's coming off of that one part of the petal. We'll flip that on there like that and create a soft edge. And then we'll go back here with a little more Cobalt Violet and put the cast shadow under this part of the banana. And I'm using a little richer color here, which is just what I want. It'll come around here like this. Now this is a case where I don't necessarily want the colors of the banana bleeding into the cast shadow. It works nicely on the apple, but right here I want a little bit more of a difference. I'll let some of it bleed in, and the way I'll do that is I'll go back with some more lemon and just kind of drop it into the cast shadow right there. Now there is another cast shadow coming down here, right along this side like that, and it lifts out a little bit to show that that peel is up off the surface, up off the tabletop. There we go. So far it looks pretty good. Let's see, what else do I want to do? I have some nice rich colors there. I want to put a little bit of a dark shape back here, like that. There's a little opening in there, which I'm going to leave as white paper, or let's see, I think since it is in cast shadow, I'll put some of that violet in there like that. Now, now I'm using more burnt sienna in that mixture because I want a nice little warm line along there. So I left out the Ultramarine Blue that I had in before. That's just to bring that little line out a little bit. And I can get some nice texture and value changes by tapping it like that. Now as the banana rolls around, I want it to have some more volume. So I'm going to put some yellow ochre on it like that. Just like I did that shape on the back of the peel. And that just blends in with the shadow shape there. Yeah, I like the way that works. Now, this has lightened more than I planned. So I'm going to touch this area right here again with a little darker value. And as I look over this, I'm pretty happy with it. The apple is dry now. So I'm going to do a little bit of spattering. And to do this, you need to practice because it can end up everywhere. I'm going to put a couple paper towels down so it doesn't splatter all over everything. If it gets into some of the background, that's fine. There's nice little speckles that you get on an apple. It's fun to spatter those in like that. And I think, yeah, that's dry, so I can put the stem in. It just, excuse me, came up like this. Just like that. So there it is. So just a couple things I want to go over. The spattering tended to dry more than I wanted. So I'm going to put a little bit more, few more little spots on the apple. They will lighten up as they dry. Now, it's all surrounded with white paper, and I like to have things connected to the border. So I'm just going to bring in a little, very light wash of cerulean blue, and just with the brush like that, make a few strokes that go over and connect to the border over here, just for the kind of the fun of it. And I like to have soft edges on there like that. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. And because it's a lighter value, it does what I want, but it doesn't really interfere with what I've already painted. So I'm just using cerulean blue for this. I like to have some things going on in the background like that. So I'll do the same thing up here. I think that makes it more interesting. And it's okay just to throw in another, just a stroke of something like that, and soften the edges around. Cerulean blue is a nice color to use because it's a very delicate color. And it's also fun to just, in a couple places, tap some spattering in like that and let it soften into that wet color. And if it gets too carried away, I can always blot some of it out. So there it is. Here's my little highlight on there that I lifted out. I have nice color temperatures between warm and cool going on. I have the apple softening into the cast shadow, and the same thing over here on one part of the banana. I've used Cobalt Violet for the cast shadows of the apple and the banana, and you can see how the cast shadows connect to each other right here. And that just pulls everything together nicely. There's a beautiful little white shape there, one over here, and that connects the objects to the background. So this is artist Dennis Pendleton saying, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and look my name up on YouTube. There's a lot more videos of me painting in watercolor. So this is Dennis Pendleton saying, keep on painting.